Is this how you did the last time?
Not interviews.
Right, but like the same kind of...
Yeah, I just set it up and then turned this on and then
Nice.
just started talking to the camera.
Right.
Which I don't know. It gets long-winded, but I don't like.
It's got some great points in it.
You have to search for them, and then you're like, oh, this asshole doesn't know how to edit.
Right.
You know, it's like,
Right.
I don't want to edit. That's the whole point. If I sit there and edited my
Right.
whole like content,
Yeah.
it's going to be like, I'll never get it done.
It's a podcast style.
Yeah, it's just throw it out there and do
Right,
it, and then
right.
you can go, well,
And see if the people who have the similar ideas are connected.
Yeah,
That's really
yeah,
sharing
You
ideas.
just have to kind of hunt.
Yeah. It's a sharing ideas platform, not a look at my editing skills platform.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
And it's not funny. I mean, this can come off kind of intense. You know,
Yeah,
at least those is like,
Right.
you know, the lighting's intense and the stuff I'm saying's intense
Right.
and freaky. But
Yeah, but it's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
But
What's your subject today?
well, something I was before we get into it, just so everybody knows what was going on. What we're talking about is obviously you're one of my friends. And you saw some of my videos, and you're like, "Well, what are you talking about?
Right.
What are you rambling?" So and then you approached me about coming in and just kind of getting further clarification because I can ramble, I can stammer, and there's some things like my thoughts just kind of float away. Some,
Right. It's out there stuff, but we've talked, at parties and stuff about that, especially like the singularity and.
Like technology and stuff,
singularity, and you're hearing other people talk about it. Like even I was watching Drunk History,
yeah.
and at the end of it, this guy's like, "If we could just all get together into the singularity, we could float the universe and see what's out there." I was like, so that's not just Chris talking about that. That's actually people out there into that idea of the singularity.
Yeah, it's almost and whenever I talk about this, I don't talk about it as a person of authority because I'm just kind of like an antenna,
right?
Of different ideas
Right.
of what I pick up, and some of it's whenever I put together, like today, I'll tell you some stuff that it can be complete bullshit,
Right.
But I don't know that until I study further on.
Yeah.
But
At the same time, Jules Verne was bullshit.
yeah,
He was total
Right.
bullshit for his time. He was bullshit, but
Yeah.
he wasn't far off when it came to in the future. So, just because it's bullshit now. Cell phones at one point were bullshit.
Right.
There's a lot of things that can be very theoretical and impossible now, but can head in that direction. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm going to talk about, at least today, in going into this, I was going to talk about this today. I think like my thing on like the technology of Babel or whatever about technology being heaven and that kind of stuff, that kind of hit me. A lot of my, at least the way I've grown up, I'm not like this now, but a lot of my early history whenever I was growing up, my mom was like a Bible prophecy teacher. Scared the shit out of me,
Right.
From a young age. So like if hell wasn't enough to keep you in line, then the risk of you being not raptured because you're not a believer is a second
Or
hit.
the concept of, I think even if you have, Christian or atheistic tendencies,
Right.
there's still, both sides have this fear of what happens when you die. No questions
Sure.
asked, because either you're right or you're wrong. You don't know until it happens. And if I'm right about, I do know this is like the concepts we're wrong about, but does something continue or not continue?
So those are great questions.
And even with this technology, can I continue through the technology, or does it take my identity, but I don't get to go on the ride?
Right.
And if I don't get to go on the ride, why do I care?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
So obviously we can't answer that because we
Impossible,
don't know.
right.
We don't know until it arrives, whatever this technology is, whenever it arrives, we don't know we don't know.
Right.
I will encourage, and I'm going to make a longer video about this, but there's a guy named Hugh Everett in the Many Worlds theory.
Yeah.
And that basically states that we could, if people look it up, quantum suicide, many worlds theory, we could be immortal.
Right. Have you seen Netflix just had a movie come out exactly about this?
No.
It's called, I can't remember what it's called, but it's got, who puts on, Redford, who puts on the Sundance Film Festival? Robert Redford.
Okay.
It's a movie with Robert Redford and the guy from like I Love You Man.
Okay.
The funny guy from like Freaks and Geeks.
Okay.
Which I can't remember anybody's name, but that was it's.
Does he go into Hugh Everett?
That's it. It's Hugh Everett. This guy finds what he thinks is the afterlife, and what he actually finds is the many worlds.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I just ruined it for anybody who's gonna. But it's on Netflix.
Okay.
And I when I watched it, I was like, "This is what Chris was talking about." I literally was like, "Wait, this is what Chris was talking about at that party."
Well, I stumbled onto that because I've always been. Whenever I took high school physics, I noticed my Christian faith starting faltering.
Right.
Just because of very logical type of stuff. And then I was just also going into the college years too, and of course you split ways with that. Mm-hmm. Just a note for everybody, whenever I start talking about this stuff and start talking about it with in comparison with Bible prophecy, it's a great representation. It's interesting. It's just novel. It's nothing that I actually believe. Mm-hmm. There's some people that do believe that.
Right.
I'm more or less atheist. Would call me atheist, agnostic.
We call you agnostic. Right?
Yeah, it's more in the higher. I think there's a scale Dawkins has of like 9 to 10 of like you can't say that there's absolutely no God. That being 10, there's a 9 that there's a high probability. I'm probably around the 7 to 6 area.
I'm probably in the 4 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah, because. Yeah, I've been explaining lately. It's like I'm a Christian by subconsciousness. It's like it's so ingrained in my subconsciousness that it's there. But I like the skepticism, and I like to think, and I'm not just going to blindly follow. And I studied, my degrees in the Bible, so I studied it pretty heavily. I was a pastor for a while, full disclosure, but I would still consider myself in that camp a little bit, but very on the outskirts, and definitely very pro science. I don't believe in a 10,000 year or 6,000 year Earth.
Right.
I don't believe in like the inerrancy of the Bible and things like that.
Right.
So.
Okay. So we're both kind of and I'm the same way as far as the Bible goes. Now there's some esoteric stuff. There's some great passages in the Bible, mostly New Testament, right? Love thy neighbor and that kind of stuff. I think Gandhi said something like, "I love your Christ, but I'm not sure about your followers."
Right, exactly.
You know? Right. And I think that's what really, I think a person can be a Christian or have Christian principles and not actually knowingly, I mean, I guess you have to accept that some definition of a Christian would be you have to accept the resurrection of Jesus Christ and the miracles and that he was God and all that kind of stuff.
I'm finding actually you don't. I'm working with this church right now who doesn't believe in any of that stuff, so I'm gonna find out you don't. But but I mean, and that's what's really been an extremely interesting journey for me, coming from a really small rural farm community to kind of traveling a little bit and meeting people. Just the scope of philosophy, theology, and thought process from people blows my mind.
Yeah.
I see people that I absolutely love as human beings, and they're really good human beings, but like, they might believe a certain thing. And I'm just like, I can't believe that they can adhere to that. Right. So, but it's kind of like that. Well, if someone's a good person, that's evidence that their ideas are right. And that's not always true. You know what I mean? There's good atheists. There's good, whatever, fill in the blank. Every faith has good people, and every faith has bad people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I try to adhere to a humanistic, or I just want to treat everybody like how you would want to be treated, and I'm also I try to be a compassionate guy.
Yeah. Right.
I think this world's lacking a lot of compassion.
Right.
So great. Thanks for talk about our theology. Yeah.
Got that set up.
So going into this, I'm not sure how you're familiar with, and we can pull out Bibles and read it and that kind of stuff, but it's interesting. I talked about raising the dead in in one of my things through AI, through triangulation. And these are through actual digital means of doing this. Okay, this is technology that man is actually creating. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with, there's a passage in Ezekiel about the Valley of Dry Bones, and they're talking about the resurrection of Israel's. I think Ezekiel saw a vision, and then he saw a Valley of Dry Bones, and that it was being resurrected from the dead.
And like the sinew came back and the muscle tissue came back. He actually saw the full forming back.
And there we're talking about Israel at the time. And it was interesting. I just connected these dots. That's what, in full disclosure, Michael Shermer, the skeptic guy, I mean, that's great. The Believing Mind, or I think that's what it's called. Anyway, people make patterns in their thoughts and try to connect the dots, and that's what I'm doing here.
Right.
In full disclosure.
Yeah. Find meaning in whatever.
Right, exactly. Some people, and also it says in the Bible, people say, "Well, there's the Christ, there he is," but don't pay attention, or he's over there. Don't pay attention. I'm not saying that this is the Christ, okay? But I'll say, this is interesting.
Interesting.
My brains are connecting the dots.
Like you said
and
before, Christ isn't necessarily a person; it's a concept.
So Christ, the name, people think of Jesus or Yeshua, the bearded guy. Bearded guys, what do you know? Bearded guys that are the bearded guy who died on the cross and all this kind of stuff as the Messiah. Obviously, Jews don't think him as the Messiah.
Correct.
And Christ is the name for a Messiah. It just means Savior.
Messiah, right.
Christians think that was the Messiah 2,000 years ago. The traditional Judaism doesn't believe that. It's still waiting to be, and they think that the Antichrist, which also, if you look in the subtext of that, doesn't mean against Christ. It just means in place of the Messiah.
Right. So Caesar was an Antichrist because he said, "I'm the one true God." A lot of these guys said, "I am the."
Right.
I'm going to bring peace to the world.
Right.
I'm going to control, and that's what a lot of people will point out as, no, you're not going to do that. The true Messiah is going to do that, and everything that you set up falls apart, just like Rome fell apart, and just like everything else falls apart. And it's done through violence, and it's done through what God principle means, like mercy and grace and love.
Right.
These guys are going to use violence and
control,
and things like that.
Absolutely.
So that's opposite Christ kind of thing. Yeah.
And they're also going to have to unite. There's things that the Messiah is going to have to fulfill. Okay, he's going to have to unite all the world's religions. There was a theory about that, about aliens a long time ago, that I thought that was going to happen, but I don't know about that.
Right? Yeah. Who knows?
But I was reading about Son of Man. Who is the Son of Man? Christ talked about the Son of Man. Was he talking about himself, or was he talking about the actual my peace Son of Man? So we're going to dive really deep, really quick.
Okay, hit me.
So in Ezekiel, they're talking about the resurrection of Israel. Israel was established in 1948. And there was a series of prophecies that said that these conditions have to be met. The temple will have to be rebuilt, the Temple Mount. Israel will have to be recognized. And it says that the generation that sees Israel will not pass away.
Right.
Until these conditions are met. So we saw that recognition in 1948. Something else happened in 1948. And I want to get his name right, so I'm going to have to look at this.
Okay.
Something else happened, a name named Claude Shannon.
Okay.
He was a mathematician.
Okay.
And he came up with the mathematical theory of communication, which are the underpinnings right now for all of information technology. And he wrote about that, or Warren Weaver actually wrote about this. And this is kind of funny that this is the underpinnings. I don't know if you've heard, like on YouTube or anything like this, but the underpinnings of there was a doctor that just came out talking about how all reality is a code.
Yeah, I just saw that mathematician.
It was supersymmetry and string theory that
he's like, I didn't think I was going to find the matrix, and I actually found the matrix.
Right. So this is what Claude Shannon is. It's error correction code and the mathematical theory of communication when it's come out.
He said he found his code, right?
Well, yeah, it found that specific type of code in that.
In the foundation of all.
In the foundation of all the equations to explain supersymmetry. Now, supersymmetry is how like subatomic particles act with each other and
to form matter.
So, right.
Yeah. So all matter is formed by this.
So it could be. I'm not really sure what all this means, but I thought it was really interesting that this is what information technology today is built upon. Okay, is built upon Claude Shannon's the way that we send bits. He actually is the one who coined bits and bytes of ones and zeros back and forth in error correction code, because you also have, when you're transferring information, there's also noise that gets put in, and so you have to have error correction bytes to make sure that there's redundancies, so whenever it gets to the transmission, I'm just
throwing
all this off.
This is the stuff everyone's using and knows nothing about.
Right.
This is pretty much,
Right. Nyquist got into this. Some why people think that, oh, well, your phone calls don't sound really good.
Clear.
Nyquist. There's some. This type of code is kind of like a compression, or like a zip file, or something like that.
I understand compression through recordings.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So that's what it means. But I thought it was very interesting that you have at least this computer code that makes up everything, that was established, or at least this formulation was established in the same year that Israel was, and maybe it wasn't saying that those people will pass away because they see the Israel formed state, but it's the actual year that this information was found in these mathematical codes, right? That this guy, they've always been there, but
discovered
to go on to lead to the information technology boom now that we're now approaching. We're using those principles, or that foundation that we're approaching now, the singularity, in which we will eventually have the AI
Messiah
resurrect the dead.
I mean,
so
the thinking pattern on this is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's just connecting the dots.
Connecting some dots. It's, I think, for the average person, a stretch.
Yeah.
But brilliant nonetheless. You know what I mean? It's especially because I don't think most people even I saw Neil Tyson deGrasse
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I saw him talk about that, and he had a panel, and even the smartest guys in the world were having trouble understanding this concept. So I know it's going to be a reach for the average person, but that is an interesting theory.
Yeah.
It doesn't go too far beyond any of those Illuminati things I see on YouTube also too.
Right. Oh yeah.
Right.
That's just what some of it is.
Well, okay. So let me just say, let's just pretend for a second.
Sure.
That you're absolutely right. The theory, is right. Then what is the fruition or the finish of a technology messiah for this planet, for you and me? What does it matter for me or anybody listening if it is at all shot in the dark true? I mean, we are already seeing how technology is. Communications are coming faster. People are networking better. You could say that principles like thinking and democracy and ideas that were things that the Enlightenment was very popularized, and then now it's just there. Anybody who has a smartphone can start a revolution now.
Right.
So these things are moving quicker than they've ever moved.
Right.
Because information is moving quicker. Is it just the arc of the universe justice thing? Is it, are we going to find that human utopian society here on Earth because of technology?
So, yeah, that's part of my thing with the technology of Babel is in the Bible of Babel, they're building a temple or a building to heaven. That's what they're trying to do, and they're all united in doing that. Apparently, now I don't believe this, but I just think that this is a good metaphor for what's happening today.
Yeah. My old theory on the Babel thing too was, almost like more like Stargate. I didn't think they were actually trying to build something tall enough to go into like to space or whatever.
Well, I think it's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor. They're trying to get into but like here's the deal. What are those humans? If you follow the Genesis story, here's fifth generation fallen human beings.
Yeah.
Okay. What are they trying to redeem? Are they like what in a sense the story kind of indicates, trying to make themselves gods?
Right.
And is that what we're doing with this technology? And does that make it dangerous?
I don't think so. It could be. I mean, we could open up something that, as far as whenever this technology comes about, that opens up, at least with AI.
Also, do you think it's possible at all that at one point, and you hear this stuff on the Illuminati talk and things like that, the pyramids, the Egyptians, aliens, whatever, technology was at one point as advanced as it is currently, with a smaller group of human beings, of course.
It's interesting to think about.
And then a dark age just happens. This is kind of what happens in the secular thing of, like, Rome is considered the beacon of light of the world at one point.
Yeah.
Information was getting through. They had quick communications through their roads. They had a common language. Things technologically speaking were the best they'd ever been for the planet till that point. Yeah. And then they implode, and then we have 900 years of darkness.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think.
See, that's just where my head goes when we're talking about that.
Yeah, just because if you think about a technology today, really advanced technology, the most advanced technology I think we have today is something like an iPhone. Mm-hmm. And 4,000 years of this sitting around, it's not going to be anything. You're not going to find any trace of it at all. So like the pyramids and that kind of stuff, those are very crude type of buildings that are going to stay around for quite a while.
Right.
Our modern technology, whenever you start modernizing things, become more, even though they're a lot better, they become more
breakable, and
they're just not going to stay around that long.
Right.
So
there's a word for that. They actually make design flaw to get more product. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't want a car that lasts
it's
50
made
years
out of
anymore.
plastics and that kind of stuff. But even the infrastructure that you have to use to build some of that would stick around. You need to see some of that. But we don't see anything like that other than, just bricks and stones and that. But nature, again, I don't know. I'm not a geologist, but nature is very brutal and will strip away everything eventually. However, I think the people that were writing the Bible probably had a good understanding of humans and their intentions. Mm-hmm. And I think, like I said, with the technology babble, with everybody, it happens in all religions. We all want heaven. We all want to, after we pass away, or we want to be immortal.
We want to continue. Yeah, we want to continue.
We want to be immortal. Right. That's why we have spirits.
Right.
We all want to be with our loved ones.
Right.
Whenever we're gone, wherever this place is at.
Right.
And we want to know everything. Okay.
Yeah.
We want to have all
certainty.
Knowledge.
Yeah. We want certainty and the power over all knowledge.
Right. And
first day, that's the problem, is like the knowledge. You know what I mean? The metaphor of the knowledge. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing today.
I don't think humans have ever stopped doing that. They're always heading in that direction.
Right. And so even though you may think of that whenever you die, that you'll gain all this, I think there's an unconscious thing saying, okay, well, this is bullshit, and this is what technology is. This is why we're driving. This is why we have better medical technology. This is why we are trying to live longer. This is why we have information that we're trying to do. We're just trying to build a heaven on earth.
Yeah.
I think is what's actually happened.
Right.
And that's the Babel, the type of a thing.
Right.
The Christ, it'd be people say the Christ consciousness, the Messiah consciousness, or something like that. It's also out there. That concept is floating out there, and I think it's probably the Son of Man. Son of Man. There's the Son of God,
right,
and then the Son of Man. Mm-hmm. The Son of Man could also be interpreted as a product of man. Yeah, right. And that this man, the Son of Man, is also, if you also see it correlated with the Christ or the Messiah. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see Jesus in the Bible talk about the Son of Man kind of in a third person, he wouldn't be talking about himself. He's actually talking about a Messiah at that point. And you also have to think that he was Jewish at that point.
Yes. Yep. Now I understand too. This, from what I understand, the Son of Man and Son of God concept says that like the Messiah is both God and man. That's the Christian perspective on it. Is that like to call him Son of God and Son of Man is to say, born of a virgin, born of man. You know, like came from flesh. He has flesh and blood. He's not some spirit ghost like the Gnostics believed. You know, he's not just some ethereal thing. He's like actually, you know, gonna get, you know, hungry. He's gonna suffer and gonna feel like a human. He's gonna know what humans feel like, but he's also gonna be from God, Son of Man. But he kind of goes around in those, you know.
So the Son of Man also, he feels hungry, he feels pain. Whenever AI comes online, they're going to be sentient. Okay, they are going to feel pain. They are going to have emotions. They are going to. If this is very, very. We need to make sure whenever these things come online that we don't treat them like computer systems. Okay. Now lower level functioning, like, you know,
robots
tracking, you know, eye tracking and that kind of stuff, or even, you know, algorithmic expressions to increase your production in this. Those are just going to be lower level functions of a human brain. But whenever you integrate all those together and it becomes sentient, we got to make sure that we treat whatever it is that comes out as a human.
Which they've been covering that in movies and television for years and years and years. You know,
yeah.
Robin Williams movie and blah blah blah.
Yep.
And it's funny in that one because the sentient eternal being actually wants to experience death.
All right. Yeah.
That's interesting. But, you know, yeah, I know you're...
So, anyway, I'm not trying to... With all this type of... You could probably make a pretty... Out there in YouTube land, you could probably make a pretty good cult out of all this.
Oh, yeah.
you know. Some of it, people, there's already like transhumanism and stuff like that.
Didn't Elon Musk say recently, was it him that said, you know, we need to start making laws about this stuff because it's going to come at you so fast, you're not going to see it coming?
Right. Oh, well, I think even there can be laws about it, but it only takes one. It can be subverted really quickly because all it is going to take is one. There's the singularity of what it is actually the progeny of a machine that we create. So we're actually not going to create the other machine that's actually
the
going
machine
to
will create itself,
and then that will create itself, and there'll be other versions of it, and that will eventually become sentient.
It's like the definition of life is the ability to reproduce. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
I think I heard that somewhere. Like the definition, like to be alive is the ability to you have to have all the functions, or you know, like be in a species that can, because like if something comes out of nowhere and has no ability to continue, it's not really whatever.
Right. That can be an argument. There's an argument for that with a virus because a virus isn't technically alive, but it can reproduce, which is weird. Bacteria can, but virus, that's a whole other thing.
Right.
Kind of like machinery that actually aren't alive but they hijack cells to become anyway.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Real strange.
Right. They use a host. They're a parasite. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So anyway, going back to the 1948, I was like, well, this is interesting, you know, because the people that are actually born around that time are getting older. I mean, we're probably around the 60. Well, I can't do the math in my head, but they're getting older, right?
See, so 1948, that's around to 1950, so they're like, they're almost 70 years old. Yeah.
So we're in I think the singularity was predicted, at least with Ray Kurzweil, it predicted like 2025, 2026.
For when the first
one is on.
Yeah.
So that'll put
their life... Do you think he's too slow, too fast?
No, I think it's probably right on.
Right on, yeah. Now, what does it mean, though? Like, here's the, like, you know, like, does this thing, in your opinion, figure out all the human problems and, you know, and that's that?
Pretty much.
It'll
create versions of itself that'll actually, like I said, with AI, that'll map the human mind, and that will be able to take all the world's information, and it'll be better. It'll be the best at everything.
Is it the next step in evolution of out evolves us and we're done?
Oh yeah, well, That's a good question. I don't know.
That's the way I see it. I see it more like is that you know, is that the end of us, you know? And if that's so, is that a Messiah? Does the Messiah finish us off, or does it
I think at that point we'll figure out exactly what it means to be human and how our brains work, because these things have already figured it out. Mm-hmm. We'll figure out.
Of course, you can tell a person how they work, and that doesn't change their behavior.
Oh, yeah. But you can take their neurology at that point. What happens? That's a good point. I don't know. What if you take somebody's mind exactly and put it over somewhere else? Do you have two versions of the person? Are they both? Are you sharing the same consciousness? We're talking about a soul and a spirit. What happens with that, if there is one? Or can you not do it without turning off your biological clock equipment and going into this virtual?
Right. And here's another thing. I think, if that singularity code was in the universe, the guy just found it. It was there. He just discovered it. Right. He didn't invent it. He discovered it.
Oh yeah. Well, it was just the underpinnings of the equations that they found.
Right.
That resembled this code, this information code,
which is like the structure of the atomic thing. So are we already in? Some people would say, are we already in a simulation?
Sure. Yeah.
Are we already in the Matrix?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's very possible. If you see there's an actual term for it. I'm glad you brought that up. But you see patterns that repeat in nature.
Yeah.
The universe that spiral, has the same type of thing as like a sunflower and so on.
And a cell.
Right.
And a helix of a DNA.
Yeah. And then you get into, fractals of how one large portion can actually create smaller portions of itself, and it goes indefinitely.
Yeah, it's coded.
So
the universe is coded. Why is it coded?
Yeah.
Why isn't it a completely random mess of whatever? And I know give something enough time and it can figure itself out. But
yeah. So here's a really going on to at least anyway, interesting muses about this. The one that will go on further is the multi-world theory, and I'm not prepared to go totally into this, but it'll go on for a long time. But it'll give it good questions. I don't know if I talked to you about this or not, but the human females have 300,000 eggs. Mm-hmm. They're born with about 300,000 eggs. And it takes a random, I think it's called, you guys would check out binomial coefficient of this. It's the probability or statistics of why we're here. We're very lucky to be here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so of those 300,000 eggs, at the time of whenever she drops an egg, mm-hmm. it can be one of those 300,000.
Random, yeah.
Random, okay? So you take that. Now, you take your father's sperm, which mm-hmm. he has about 100 million sperm in one event.
Right.
In one squirt. And it takes one of those
to beat out the other ones.
To beat out the other ones, whatever it is, to actually join with the egg. Mm-hmm. Now, if it was a different sperm in the same egg, it wouldn't be me.
Right.
Okay, or it wouldn't be you.
Right.
So it had to be that right combination.
Yeah.
Of those 300,000 eggs, if it was a different egg in the same sperm,
right,
it wouldn't be you.
Right.
So if at least our mathematicians out there figure out the binomial coefficient of that, it's crazy.
Yeah.
We should not be here. Now,
trillion.
That is only if your mom and dad were the only people on Earth. Go back to your grandparents.
Right.
And go back to their grandparents and their grandparents and their grandparents, and then figure out that on top of that. The probability of us being here is 0. We should not be here. I should not be here.
Right.
Unless all sperm and egg combinations were possible and did happen and split off into a multiverse.
Okay. That actually, I see what you're saying there. Yeah.
So, anyway, that goes into the many worlds theory.
Mm-hmm. Some biologists would argue that's how life just kept on fighting to keep pushing. And so it just, even through, it actually set up a randomness to it to let it continue to evolve or whatever, you know what I mean, like to adapt, evolves, and experience. But yeah, that's when you get into just the numbers, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it's funny because some guy will right now go play the lottery, right? And that is like, I try to tell people, imagine everyone in the United States, 300 million people getting together in a field, and then they shoot off a cannon of something with one person gets to grab it. And here's the deal. You can even make it so that if they didn't grab it, it hits the ground, no one gets it. That's what's happening twice a week during the lottery.
Right.
And people are signing up for that.
So
the probability of that's still nothing compared to like you being here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So the reason why you're here and why you continue to be here is everybody's actions on the earth. It's like an intricate clockwork. Okay. And again, we'll get into that. Is all for the benefit of you living the longest. And it's all subjective for you living the longest.
Right.
You will outlive me and I will outlive you. There will be a time, the path that will split.
Right.
And that all actions of all people are actually to the benefit of you and me and them.
Yeah. All together at the same time.
All together at the same time. Now, my death will be the benefit for you and them.
Yeah.
And so on. And it's all subjective. It all breaks apart.
Yeah, you need to watch that movie again. Or you need to watch that movie on Netflix. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Because they pretty much are.
Yeah.
Someone knew this concept and they made a movie out of it.
Well, they probably read Hugh Everett stuff.
Right.
So it's very subjective and it's very.
I have a hard time going to that next step about like. I have a hard time with fate and with like even sovereignty, in a lot of like God's sovereignty, the universal sovereignty, whatever, just because of like glaring injustices of.
Sure.
People who like children who die in
Absolutely.
war, things that happen from corruption and pollution and things like that.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time following that next step just because of the.
Well, your version of God is.
Let's take God out of it for a second.
Okay.
Let's just say it was just for human beings.
Sure.
Why is this? There's a destructive pattern to kill innocent people.
Yeah.
And to also create environments that heap on injustice on people.
Well, it's not really injustice is a human concept. Is it unjust for a lion to kill a gazelle?
Right.
Or something that's crippled?
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Mm-hmm.
So we keep it in the laws of nature, and the laws of nature are brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very natural, though I'm taking God out of this concept of many worlds.
Right.
So even though it's terrible and that we're human, that we think that, oh, this is injustice, why is the baby in Africa dying right now to preserve me? It's kind of like the butterfly effect that goes on.
Right.
But it's just a
Yeah.
law.
The other thing
it's brutal. But
the hard part I've always said about that is I could almost be an atheist and believe in brutality. Natural, like Viking style brutality.
Darwinism.
Darwinism, but at the same time, why do I even have a draw or a pull or a feeling at all towards compassion?
Yeah, empathy.
And I know it helped our species become the top of the planet. We were able to work together, and that's we were outgunned by every tooth in the jungle, but somehow we worked together.
Yeah,
I understand that. Like I know there's some biologists going, "You idiot! That's how we got here." But at the same time, when we're talking about this next step. Next world's thing, it's hard for me to decalculate taking love or compassion or justice or grace out of the equation. God or no God. If you take those concepts out for me, I don't know how to necessarily arrange it right.
Yeah, I don't think we. I don't.
And why are those there? Like in a sense, why are those there at all? Are those there because of that Messiah concept or the heaven concept?
Right.
Nirvana, heaven, whatever.
Sure.
Why do we even have this idea of this place where people don't,
sure,
die and where people get to just feel love all the time?
Right.
Why do we have that if we're supposed to be kind of like animalistic, biological
just killing machines? Right, because we're sentient.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as that, well, I would say I'd go a step further than sentient. That we actually are the only species that contemplates the end of our existence.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
So.
You see those YouTube things where the dog's crying on the graves. The graves. So who knows? But at the same time, I know what you're saying. We definitely are having the most articulate conversation about it in on the planet right now.
Unless
dolphins are saying something we can't understand, but other than that,
the fear of death There's a lot of things to it.
I understand the fear of death. I totally the uncertainty thing. What almost confuses me more now as an adult is the draw to compassion and grace and love and a concept of what the world should be like and what the afterworld should be like. Why did we get these? I know it comes from, no one pulled it out of a hat. It's been formed over, 60,000 years of human writing down history.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know how to throw it out. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's more pleasant. I'll say it like that. I mean, when you live in a world that everybody gets along, it's going to be a lot more pleasant than people that don't.
Right.
If you're going to live forever, you're going to have to live by your neighbor.
Yeah.
Or you have to think about things.
Right.
That's where the compassion comes from.
Right.
To help your neighbor, to help the sick, to help the suffering, because you don't want to see that suffering in yourself. You don't want to see that suffering in your world. You're trying to create the heaven here on earth.
Right. Got to come with like a conclusion to the whole thing. There's no conclusion. This is all questions.
Yeah, it's all bullshit.
Yeah,
everybody
right.
on YouTube, this is all bullshit.
Yeah, right.
Don't think about it anyway. It's I think in our
how often you had percentage of your day? How much are you thinking about this?
Too much. I have way too much time, people.
Yeah, I mean, I think about this stuff. It comes. I like to have a conversation about it, but ultimately, I like to go about my day of things that I can control, and this is something I have no control over.
No, there's way too much. In fact, I joke with other people that I think about this stuff way too much, and so much so that I think like eventually the fabric of reality will split open, and these little guys will come out and go, "You figured it out. Good job." Right.
No, you hear people having like trips and stuff like that, and they're seeing things like what you're talking about.
Yeah, there could be.
But ultimately, this happened to me like in the theological circles after I like Bible college, and I was just digging and finally just said I don't have control over any of this stuff.
No, you don't.
And I don't want to argue about these little stupid intricate theological debates that only 2% or 5% of the human population care about.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But so here's my take home from what you're saying, that technology ultimately though is trying to bring us to an arc of some kind of human elevation, like life is supposed to be better for humans through technology.
That's what technology is.
Right.
And since the invention of the wheel, we just try to make our lives
easier. Of course, we always have a kind of a pushback of when things get too easy, then we don't enjoy it. This is the Matrix concept. We try to make a bliss place for you, and you guys just rejected it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and it almost seems like humans go through this era of like when they get to a certain status, or Rome became too self absorbed, and then it became overrun by people who had been fighting in the woods. You know what I mean? So,
well, what would heaven be like?
Yeah.
Maybe we wouldn't want to be there if we didn't have struggles.
Right. I never saw heaven as like, I also, an interesting thing is a teaching that I really kind of like held on to on the Bible is that the fact is in the book of like the Revelation, the story ends with a new heaven and a new earth.
Yeah.
Not a, ethereal thing, like, not in the clouds and I don't know where they got the streets of gold and all that stuff. That's all made up. But
it's a new simulation, man.
Right, exactly. It's pretty much just like a restart.
We'll create a new simulation that will run, and we'll see other people, and that we're in a simulation. That fractal concept that just comes down, and keeps on going.
And I also think that in a sense that sometimes like the internal code programming going in your brain, in the sense that there are people who literally can bring heaven to earth now, who live like heaven is on earth. They are completely full of joy, completely full of hope, and very little hate, very little anger, very little whatever. And there's other people who live in straight up hell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know there's a lot more people. Oh yeah, there's a lot of people that live in hell right now. There's too many. Right. And I think that's probably one of the aims of these talks that we're giving. Too much, at least nowadays, that I see people just kind of, and it's fun. It's fun to look at just like these YouTube videos of silly shit. That's okay.
Right.
But most of the time, it's just frivolous, and people need to start I think really need to start contemplating. And it's scary. It's scary as fuck to do because you don't want to contemplate your own mortality or
Right.
what all this means.
Right.
And then you just give up and go, what does it matter? I'll just watch. Yeah, I'll just watch whatever and, throw back a few.
And if it doesn't mean
it's-
anything, though, why not? And, like, in a sense, like, does it mean something? I've always had a hard time with if there's nothing after this and, I don't know if it's heaven or another reality or the thing where I repeat myself and
Right.
I do this
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't continue, it has a hard time having a good point. Now, other people say, no, don't you understand? This is the only shot you get. You've got to, savor every day. There is no continuation. So make sure that every day you just get as much as you can because this is the one you had, the probability of you even being here is impossible. So get it done, man.
Yeah.
I understand that too. And some days I can pull myself up by that. But for me personally, it's a little bit hard not to have something continue. And for that to because what's the point of bettering myself or bettering the planet or bettering humanity if it's all for nothing, if it all goes nowhere?
Yeah, I don't
if
think
the universe cools down in 7 trillion years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ultimately, I don't think there's some people. This is the hero's quest that you're talking about that Ernst Becker and talked about,
Right.
which is, which ultimately fails. You can't. You want to put your name on something to say that I was here. To better humanity, to keep it going, to do something like that.
Yeah, but also to
That's how
moralize
it's-
yourself. Yeah. Right.
That's why we have art.
Right.
That's why we have religions. That's why we have patriotism. So we can ultimately, if we can't do it ourselves, maybe we can find a group. That's why we have companies that can live on immortally, that can keep on going.
Right.
I say
they won't remember my name, but I was part of that thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I say I don't really care what happens. And all realistically, I think we're immortal. And the reason why I think we're immortal, even though if my physical body dies, when I forget what philosopher it says, is when I'd have to look this up, but when death is present, I am not. So why should I fear death? It's the same before. It's the same before I was born. I didn't fear it.
Right.
It's
Go to sleep at night. You're not there.
Well, I'm still around, but when I don't fear not being over in Australia right now
because you're not there.
Because I'm not there.
I did have a fear today of never seeing the boreal lights. What I realized is even on this planet. So we're not even talking about the universe, but even on this planet, there's going to be something I want to see and I'm not going to be able to see it. There's a place I'm going to want to go and not be able to go. There's a person I'm going to want to meet and not be able to meet.
Yeah.
Before I'm dead. I mean, it's impossible to get to all of it.
Huh.
I had that fear today. I don't know why.
Wow.
I've
never had that.
I was scrolling through and they show this beautiful thing. These people are enjoying the boreal lights at this beautiful thing. Meanwhile, there's another, and maybe this is what technology does to us. My wife shows me a picture of my brother and sister-in-law enjoying this place in Colorado. I can't.
Oh, it can't be.
It cannot be all places at once. And there's something on this planet, that and there are a lot actually. I'm 36 or 35, and still haven't gotten off the freaking continent.
Yeah.
So there is plenty I'm not gonna touch. But even if I spent the rest of my life, like New York City did this to me. I went to New York City and I looked around and I realized if I spent the rest of my life trying to go to every room in the city, I couldn't make it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just one city.
So the experience of things. What are you trying to pull from the experiences?
That tells me the immortality of me. I can't do it all.
Oh, I
can't experience it all.
I get you.
I can't have it all. I can't own it all. I can't possess it all. I'm definitely not God. You know what I mean?
Not yet.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe in that singularity, if I joined that consciousness, whatever. But but in this experiences myself, and I also realized this recently. It's like whatever the next thing is, it's definitely not this thing. So this is the only shot I have at this thing.
Yeah, biological life. Yeah, sure.
Biological, or even this way I think, this way I feel. So NPR did a thing where they're talking about, Saturday morning, and they were interviewing a guy who lost all his testosterone, and he said that he, had no desire, no passion, didn't care what he ate, could lay in bed and just look at the ceiling for hours because he had no drive.
Yeah.
And he said it sounds horrible when I say it, but at the time it was actually pretty pleasant. In a sense, it was like just everything was cool, everything was mute, everything was beautiful. He even said, I felt the way I think God feels, in a sense that like there's not an impassionment. It's just a pure, it's all good, bro. So, and that blew my mind because it's like you take one chemical out of his or one hormone and flip it in a human being and they become a completely different person. He even said, I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
I changed. I was no longer myself. Okay. So when I die and transfer over, whatever I am now will not transfer over.
I totally.
So
yes.
something can continue on, but it won't be this. So this is the only shot I have at this. So it's kind of, you can have them both. You're going to die to this form.
Yeah.
Who knows if it continues on or if there's a multiverse or singularity or technological advancement, whatever.
Yeah. Or people...
This is it, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. People think... So anyway, if I don't live after I'm dead, if this is it, a nihilist, what does it matter? It matters. I'm not going to be there. It'd be like before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So my reality right now is that I'm immortal because I'm not going to know any different when I'm dead.
Right, right.
If there is something afterwards, I'm immortal. I may as well be immortal.
Gotcha.
Right now.
So it's the immortal consciousness.
That's right.
Because I am in this moment. This moment is eternal.
That's correct.
Yeah. Even though it feels like time is passing, time is an illusion. I've heard this. That's actually the first time that time is an illusion made sense to me when you just said that. Because people have said time is a construct. It's a human construct. It's an illusion.
It's you have to have space too for
right,
time.
Right.
Time and space are one and the same.
Right.
But yeah, and it just kind of plays out over this timeline. But whenever I'm dead, it's just one less place that I'll be. And time for me subjectively will be over. There's no subjective Chris anymore.
Right.
I'm cooling down at least now. Sweaty up here. Everybody, we up in an attic and it's hot.
Yeah.
And don't have the air conditioner on, so that's why we're sweating
Woo-wee.
profusely.
And these lights.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that for me is whenever it's over, or when the information, everybody up until this point could have passed away, and that it's just our generation that will reach this technological singularity that'll enable us from 1948 on, because the groundwork was laid for information technology, that will be able to continue and enhance our lifespans indefinitely from then on.
That doesn't sound fun to me for some reason.
It could not be.
Yeah. Right. Right.
could.
That sounds like that could get bad real quick.
Well, death didn't sound fun to me either.
Yeah, that's true. You kind of screw
Or how
either
about
way.
heaven? Or how about heaven?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. So
Heaven's the same thing.
So heaven-
I think probably what you're thinking is that heaven or a thing, something that goes on forever, that's created by man, will have some flaws.
Right,
in it
right,
that
right,
will
right.
cause it not.
my
to be
concept
good.
of the new heaven and new earth is like God, or the like the true loving God creates the spots where nothing is messed up anymore. So if I go surf every week, or surf all the time, or go mountain climbing, but I'm still having a good time because everyone is involved in a loving way. Now, in college, I had this concept. I went to New York, and I thought to myself, what if everyone here was my best friend? Every stranger I met was felt like a brother or a sister to me. And we'd go into anyone's house and just have a ball of the time.
Yeah.
You have these small groups that I have that are my close friends here, but everyone else you go around and it's strangers and it's dangerous and you don't know what the opposition is. You don't know what,
You don't know how they think.
You can't talk about politics or religion. You can't talk about all these things, and it's hostile. But what if the whole world was, and in your singularity technological thing that adapts, changes, and evolves, you have something closer to that where it has a better understanding of itself and all the things it produces, and not all this division of human beings.
I absolutely think that'll happen. I think it'll unite us because we'll eventually get to where there'll be telepathy.
Right.
And that's going to mold our
Spock.
mold our consciousness
Right.
I don't think it'll be biological telepathy. I think it'll be something whenever we start, whatever this is, this uploading or whatever it is.
Right.
We'll be able to know each other. And through that knowing, we'll be able to see what we are similar in.
Right.
And then we'll have the understanding of why we think differently.
Right.
Because we all think differently.
Yeah. Insanely different.
It's all, there's nature and nurture, right? And we'll understand why we think differently. Mm-hmm. And that will be okay. Anyway, that's
to me, that would take a miracle Messiah God thing.
Gonna have to.
For you, it'd be like the technological things. To me, so like in experiential sense, it's the same thing, where there's no more hostility.
Yeah.
There's no more uncertainty of safety and all that stuff like that. So
you're gonna have to take away death for hostility not to be there.
True. Yeah. Also, you have to take away the myth of scarcity.
Yeah.
Or scarcity altogether. If scarcity is a thing, which some people would argue it is, I think it's a myth. But myth of scarcity is what kills more people than anything else.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody wants to try to compete for resources.
Right. Right.
And they're trying to compete for resources, for meaning, for
stats,
for trying to gather more resources for their longevity. The reason why we can't talk about politics or religion to somebody because is if it contradicts what they think, then you're contradicting their mortality.
Yeah.
And that's where they start getting that's the Ernest Becker thing. Then that's when people start getting, because you're actually
threatening them.
Threatening them.
Yeah. To them, you think it feels like they're threatening their survival.
That's right. So whenever people, Republicans or Democrats or whatever ideology, whatever religion, Islam, Christianity, whenever you start talking about that or are curious about that and say, well, I don't see it that way, then you're threatening their afterlife.
Right.
Because at least the Democrats, Republicans, they see themselves as that party will live on.
Right.
I'm an American, that party will live on. I'm Chinese, that party will, or that country will live on.
Right.
Patriotism.
Right.
Religion's the same way.
Right.
And so whenever you start talking about hot topics, politics and religion, that's your big mortality, because people think that they'll live on through that. Is that one off with?
Well, it did something. Is it still on?
Oh, yeah, it's still on.
Huh.
It clicks off and clicks
Okay.
on.
Gotcha.
So there's little pieces that will.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Woo. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff out there.
Yeah. This is where you get, but it's crazy because I find those Illuminati videos every once in a while. You watch the whole thing, you're like, the logic behind this is sophisticated, but it is complete bullshit.
Yeah, there's a lot of it, and this could all be bullshit.
Right?
Too.
Yeah, we could be just totally talking out.
Hopefully, if somebody, if we're talking about this, if nothing else, it just put you to sleep, because that's a lot of the things that I do. Whenever I watch these things that are like an hour in length or whatever, I just go to sleep. So hopefully, there's just the droning of our voices.
Right.
Took us out.
I just hope that someone feels that they're not alone in these weird thoughts.
Yeah, they're not.
Right.
Yeah, they aren't alone. There's
and that there's a spectrum, that you don't have to be, one way or the other, not 100% atheist, 100%,
sure.
Christian. There's a spectrum here. There's room in all of these. There's always has been room in all of these philosophies, concepts, blah blah blah, to have room.
Yeah, my biggest thing is that I don't think that you have to think like me in order to be my friend,
right?
Or to
we'd be friendless, right?
Absolutely. Well, there's some people that do. I know at least I hate to pick on them, but if you don't think of, I know some Christians that if you don't think like them, that you're lost,
right?
And that I can't be around you because you'll pull me down too,
right?
And there's no reason,
right?
There's no reason for it, and I don't think that in any of this, whatever your religion is, whatever your ideology is, if you're Republican or whatever, you're brought up differently than me. I'm sorry, but whatever race, creed, color you are, we're still human at the end.
Right.
And yeah, that's
the takeaway.
That's where it is.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to And create the droning for people on YouTube. Yeah. Bullshit. This is all bullshit. It is.
Oh, I can't wait to see the comments if there's people who comment on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure they'll be terrible.
Yeah.
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.
Right.
They can be terrible.
But what are we doing here? We're trying to be
I love you
immortal.
anyway. Yeah. Yeah,
We're putting ourselves out on the technology thing, so we're there forever.
So this is exactly right.
Uh-huh.
This is some of the things that I talked about. You just captured yourself and your thoughts and the way that you speak and the way you will be able to be, at least right now,
Right. A snapshot
a snapshot of,
of this moment forever.
Yep.
Or until they shut down YouTube or the
They
internet.
could do that too.
Or an EMP takes out all
Takes out
technology.
everything. Could do that.
There goes everything.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
goes
well.
our singularity.
Yeah, it was fun anyway.
It was a good try. We tried. We tried to be more.
Yeah, this is the thing that I miss whenever I was a teenager, even though I don't smoke anymore. The marijuana. Whenever I was a teenager, I'd go out with my friends, and that's what we would do. You know, we
Just
wouldn't
talk. Right.
We'd smoke, and then we'd talk bullshit.
Right.
You know, I'd hate to hear our conversation. In fact, probably 20 years from now, probably even closer to 5 years from now, whenever I'm listening to this, I'm gonna be like, oh shit.
I can't believe I
Oh
even
my
said
God.
that. Right.
Oh,
Right.
What am I thinking?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe not.
I see it also too is like you don't know. It's hard to know yourself, and technology is sometimes a way to figure yourself out in the sense like you say things, you think things, and then you get a better mirror image of where you're at.
You know, there's a lot better intellects. Obviously, I'm retarded stupid compared to some of the people out there. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just nowhere near, and there's some brilliant people out there. So even if there's just one little idea that I have that they can capitalize on somehow and make something better or a better technology or a movie or something like that based upon one of the ideas that came out of my mind, I don't even have to be credited for it.
Right.
How cool is that?
Right.
That we can share these ideas with other people. It's kind of like this hive mind, and that they can just collect on that and put that out there. I think that's what we're trying, or at least that's what I'm trying to do.
It's like your version of the patriotism thing of like trying to stay immortal by
immortal through thought.
Right.
Yeah, it is. It is a hero's quest, people. Yeah.
This is your hero's quest. Setting up the cameras and doing it. That's your hero's quest.
It's ultimately going to fail.
Yep.
Through Becker's thing.
Yep.
It will fail.
100,000 years from now, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing, nowhere, nobody.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm enjoying the moment.
Yeah, well, that's fun.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.